Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in today. It is ModelcarNick, and I have a pretty cool model to show you around today. This is the Solido 1/18 scale E46 BMW M3, and it's finished in this stunning British racing green on silver wheels, and it's got a peanut butter leather interior. So let's get into it. I'll show you the features, details, and some of my overall opinions on this model. But before I get into it, let's kind of show you around what comes in this model. So here's the box. It's pretty undescript. It does come with a base plate that says BMW E46 M3 Coupe, but honestly, nothing else too special about this box. No pictures really. So, I wouldn't be too upset if you were to throw this away, but I usually like to keep these. So back to the model itself. So looking up front, obviously a pretty standard E46 M3, nothing really too special about it besides the spec of it. I think this is the best spec you can get for this particular model. And this actually is my first Solido model. This was a Christmas gift, but I believe these retail around $60. And that's probably about what they're going for, maybe 65. But I wouldn't really recommend you paying any more than that. I mean, this is kind of a, lower tier model compared to some of the higher quality brands out there. And so my first Solido, and let's kind of get into it. And at the end, I'll tell you my opinions on it overall. But looking up front, we have the BMW logo right there, the badge, and it does look pretty good. It is actually a badge and not just a sticker on there. The grille itself is pretty small, unlike some of the newer BMWs out there today, but the grills themselves look pretty decent. You can't really see anything through them, but they are, pretty well indented. You just can't see anything behind it, but that's okay. Lower grille itself looks like it's just a fake mesh plastic, but it does look pretty good. Down there we have the fog lights, and the headlights themselves are pretty undescript, but I think they did a pretty good job emulating what the real ones do look like. Right up here too, it says BMW M3 on the license plate, but honestly, not really amazing with the details up front, but I think they did do a pretty decent job with it overall. The glass covering the plastic, or the headlights themselves, does look pretty thin, and you can see the edges of it stand out pretty prominently, but it's pretty clear, and it just is what it is, but they're not like amazing. But moving down the side, as you can see, the hood itself does have the kind of signature M3 bulge right there, and there is a little hood vent behind it, and that is just, fake perforated plastic mesh right there. The front windshield itself is pretty clear. This is a brand new model, so it's not scratched up or anything yet, but it does look pretty decent. Moving down towards the side though, the wheels themselves, these are I think these are like the standard M3 wheels that come with this car, and they do look really good. As you can see, they're kind of like a dual spoke design, but behind there, you can't really make out any of the details because it's a really big wheel, but looks like there are drilled rotors sitting behind the wheels, and then just a silver brake caliper. That's pretty undescript, and I don't think it says anything on it. But yeah, the wheel itself does have the BMW logo sitting in the center cap, and there also is a little M3 badge in the wheel itself, as you can see right there on the side. It is really hard to make out, but it is there. But moving down towards the rest of the vehicle, this M3 obviously has kind of the wide body kit that all M3 cars kind of have. So as you can see, this fender liner right, or the kind of the side panel, I guess, right here is extended just a little bit, and it does look pretty good. Right here there is a little vent coming on the side, and it is finished in silver, and it also has an M3 badge right there as well. There also is a little turn signal indicator right there on the side, but it is kind of crooked sitting, and it doesn't really look too great. But looking at the paint some more, as you can see, it is a metallic, and it does look really good. There is kind of one issue with the packaging of this model itself, and they put like these little sticky pieces of tape to close the door, and as you can see, it just leaves a lot of residue behind, and it did happen on both sides. So that's the easy fix. You could just get some Goo Gone and then remove the rest of the stickiness left on the car. But that is something I wanted to point out because it's just kind of annoying to get a new model. But you got to clean it up some because the tape they use is just a little too sticky for these kind of models. But moving towards the rear, as you can see, kind of this wide body on the rear wheel arch does show pretty good in this paint color. And then just the rest of the kind of the linings that they had, like right here, there is kind of a piece of trim that follows through the side of the vehicle, and it looks really good. The door handles themselves are pretty undescript, but I think they did a pretty good job. It is missing a keyhole though, but that's all right. And the mirrors themselves, not really too much going on with them, but they do look pretty decent. And the top of this model as well, no sunroof, no carbon fiber. It's just painted green, but it does look pretty good. And then surrounding the windows, it's just kind of a matte black plastic trim that follows around the windshield or the side windows themselves. And then back here, we have a little gas cap that does not open. And then I should mention now that this model actually does not have too many opening features. The only things that open are the doors, but besides that, the trunk and the hood itself do not open, which I find pretty unfortunate because I feel like Solidos generally open up, but this one does not, so that's kind of tragic. But moving on from there, as you can see, the rear of this car looks really nice. It's got this quad-tipped chrome exhaust, which all M cars have. And then the BMW logo, again, it's just a badge right here sitting on the trunk lid. That looks pretty good. M3 badges right here, but those are just stickers. And then the taillights, as you can see, they look pretty good, actually. Not really too much detail to note for the time. You know, these cars didn't really have crazy taillights back then, but I think they did do a pretty good job with them. So as you can see, there also is a little keyhole right there, which is funny because they didn't add it on the doors. But yeah, that's kind of the rear of this car. Like I said, though, the trunk does not open, which is, I feel like it should. I'm not able to open it, but it's pretty stuck down there. So I feel like this could open, but I just wasn't able to get it open. But for me, you know, this seems pretty closed. So moving on, I'll show you guys the interior real quick. And here it is. And the interior color choice of this particular model is really good. It's got the peanut butter brown interior, as you can see, and it does look pretty good. Here's the doors themselves. You know, nothing really too crazy going on in there. They didn't even kind of bother to kind of paint match this speaker grill right here. It's just the same color as the door, which is kind of funny, but no big deal. Also, no carpets on the floor of this car, which is really interesting. Generally, these seats also would sit a little bit more down, but there is kind of just a flat plastic base on the bottom of the interior. It looks like they also did add a little chrome surrounding for this little footrest right here, but the gas pedals themselves are not, trimmed in any particular color. And it's kind of hard to see, but let me see if I can show you guys a little bit better. It looks like they only have the gas and the brake pedal, which are really close together, which is kind of funny. And I guess that is kind of finished in all plastic, as you can see over there. And to kind of bring that further on, this is actually I don't think this is the manual car, but it does have some paddle shifters on the steering wheel sitting behind it, but it's really hard to tell. The steering wheel is kind of interesting looking. I would say the real car has a little bit thinner of a steering wheel. I mean, at least for the parts that attach to the wheel itself. So this part and this part on the real car, I believe, are a little bit thinner. This one looks a little bit bulky. But yeah, honestly, just a pretty undescript looking dashboard. It looks like they did kind of try a little bit, but they didn't really add like any trim around the dashboard or anything like that, and no carbon fiber to mention. But you know, BMW logo on the steering wheel, a little M badge sitting right down below it, which I know is really hard to tell. But you know, pretty basic looking interior. The gauge cluster itself does look really decent. They did add a little chrome surrounding the little circles, which is pretty standard on all BMW M cars. I'll just try to give you another look at the rest of the interior. So there it kind of is. I know the back seat's kind of hard to see. But yeah, I think it looks pretty decent. Overall, though, you know, I really love the spec of this model, which is why I wanted to pick it up. It just looks really decent, and I don't have a E46 in my collection yet, so this is the first one I've had, first Solido I've had. And I think, you know, it is a really lovely looking model. It is pretty light compared to some of the other more higher quality models that I have in my collection, but it's not the lightest thing I've ever felt. Some other things I've noted is that it kind of doesn't sit on all four wheels properly. As you can see, if I move the car around, the front wheel doesn't really like to move as much as the other ones. As you can see, it's kind of just stuck there, which is fine. It's just not completely level, which is interesting. I also did notice that this front steering wheel right here, it does move with the wheels themselves, but this is pretty stiff, which is I kind of like, because if you pick up the model, it doesn't go flying everywhere, but the wheels are pretty hard to turn, and they don't turn too much. As you can see, it's kind of limited to this much angle, but that's not really a big deal. It's not really a toy. It's just more meant to look at. But overall, you know, this is a really good looking model. Kind of let me down with the non-opening hood and the non-opening trunk. And I think for $60, I mean, I think for a little bit more, you could get a Paragon BMW, which I'll pull out right now. So here's a Paragon BMW M4 sitting right next to it. And I paid like $60 or $70 for this model. And, you know, for this price, you can get fully opening features, you know, and then, you know, carpeted interior on these Paragon models. So, you know, I think if you spend a little bit more money, you could probably get a lot better of a model. As you can see, like, look at this interior. I mean, I have a review out on this channel about this particular M4, but I just don't think, you know, this is necessarily worth almost as much as these Paragon models. But, you know, that being said, if you want this spec and you want a really nice E46 M3 that not pay auto art money, you know, this is about as good as you can get. And I wouldn't blame anyone for picking this up. But if you don't have a Paragon yet, I would say probably get one of these before you get a Solido model. But yeah, overall, I'd probably give this model a solid 6 out of 10. You know, I really like the color and the spec, but I think everything else as the model as a whole, this isn't really a great model. But it does look pretty good sitting next to some of the other models in the collection. So yeah, but thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll have a lot more reviews on different models coming out in the future, so stay tuned and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you guys, and take it easy. Bye.